You make another point in terms of intra-black relations, and that is, you say affirmative action for the most part has really benefited blacks who really didn't need affirmative action.
Affirmative action is a great way for black PhDs to get endowed chairs. It's a terrible way for some kid in the South Bronx to try to get his first job. What affirmative action does is create an incentive for people to hire those who have a proven track record, those who have degrees and things like that. It makes it more dangerous for the employer to hire an untrained person with no track record, because if he has to fire that person, then he's letting himself in for legal trouble. In other words, you can hire a white of very doubtful qualifications, and if he doesn't work out, throw him out in the street the next week. You hire blacks of doubtful qualifications, throw them out in the street the next week, and you've got the NAACP, you've got the EEOC, you've got God knows who all to contend with. The employers have long ago figured this one out, and so they have not hired those blacks who are at all doubtful, either in terms of qualifications or simply not enough experience to know how good they are. You see this in the data. Blacks who have education and who have experience have been moving up on whites, and in some cases overtaking whites. If you look at blacks who have not finished high school, blacks who come from background of families that are broken and so forth, they are falling further and further behind, not only further behind the population in general, but further behind whites with the same disadvantages.
What do you blame for that? You're not blaming middle-class blacks who are beneficiaries of affirmative action, are you?
I'm blaming the incentives created by affirmative action, because when it comes to the incentives that are created, the businessman is going to try to protect himself whatever way he can, and that means hiring those blacks who are overqualified, who have a long track record, and so on. And that's what all the data show, that for example, black couples where the husband and wife are both college educated now make more money than white couples where the husband and wife are both educated. But the black female-headed family has lost real income in absolute terms over the past several years, and has fallen further behind white female-headed families. So the very opposite trends are going on at the same time, and you can't argue this because of blackness or racism, because both of them are black people. One group is shooting way ahead, one is falling further and further behind. And a large part of that reason, I believe, and the data seem to suggest, is because the incentives created by affirmative action and similar kinds of programs just make it too dangerous to take a chance.
Group preference policies known as affirmative action in the United States have existed in many other countries around the world, often longer than they have in the United States, and under a variety of names, such as positive discrimination in India and Britain, sons of the soil preferences in Malaysia and Indonesia, and reflecting the federal character of the country in Nigeria. Though based on a variety of rationales peculiar to particular countries, these group preference policies have had a remarkable similarity in their actual consequences, which have often differed considerably from the visions or rationales on which they were based. One of the common characteristics of group preference programs in many countries has been that their proponents have said that these are temporary programs, and in some countries there have even been specific cutoff dates for the ending of these programs. Yet these programs have been extended as these cutoff dates approached, and sometimes re-extended, but seldom, if ever, actually ended. More commonly, these programs have expanded over time, spreading to more institutions, to more processes within institutions, or to more groups. In the United States, for example, affirmative action referred initially to positive steps to ensure equal opportunity without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. But within a very few years, affirmative action took on the meaning of numerical goals that amounted to group quotas. In Malaysia and India, preferences spread to the grades of students that were adjusted for the benefit of groups preferentially admitted to universities. In short, the expansion of preferences has been the rule, not the exception. What might seem to be the simplest and easiest of the goals to achieve by group preferences, the advancement of the group or groups selected as beneficiaries, has in fact proved to be one of the most elusive. Although the rationale for providing preferential treatment for particular groups has usually been to aid their rise from a disadvantaged position, The actual beneficiaries of group preferences have often been individuals who have been more fortunate than other members of their group, and even more fortunate than the average member of the society as a whole. That has been true in India, in Malaysia, and in the United States, among other places. Under the headline, "With affirmative action, India's rich gain school slots meant for poor," the New York Times reported that in that country's universities, those given set-asides at their institutions were generally the children of doctors, lawyers, and high-level bureaucrats. In Malaysia, just over half of the scholarships awarded under affirmative action went to Malay students whose families were in the top 17% of the income distribution. A 2004 study found that a majority of the black alumni of Harvard were either West Indian or African immigrants, or the children of these immigrants, not native-born American blacks who provide the rationale for preferential admissions. Similar findings have appeared in studies of some other elite colleges. Where students from genuinely disadvantaged minority groups have been preferentially admitted to college and universities, it has been by no means certain that this has been, on net balance, a benefit, and actual harm inflicted on the supposed beneficiaries has been by no means unknown. As noted in Chapter 5, black and other minority students with the qualifications for success have been artificially turned into failures by being mismatched with academic institutions they do not qualify for under the standards applied to other students. This mismatching effect can be seen by what happened when racial preferences were banned in the University of California system. Despite dire predictions that there would be a drastic reduction in the number of minority students in the University of California system after racial preferences in admission were banned, an empirical study showed that there were modest declines in black and Hispanic enrollment, but an increase in black and Hispanic degrees. There were major declines in minority enrollment at the top-ranked Berkeley and UCLA campuses, 42% and 33% respectively. But these declines were almost completely offset by increases in the number of minority students at the other campuses. More important, there was an increase in the number of black and Hispanic students graduating from the University of California system, including an increase of 55% in the number graduating in 4 years, and an increase of 63% in the number graduating in 4 years with a grade point average of 3.5 or higher. The number of black and Hispanic students who graduated with degrees in science, technology, mathematics, and engineering rose by 51%, and the number of doctorates earned by black and Hispanic students in the system rose by 25% after preferential admissions policies were banned. Data from other colleges and universities likewise show higher graduation rates for black students at colleges and universities when their academic qualifications are more similar to those of the other students at those institutions. Moreover, black students who are mismatched with law schools do not pass the bar examination as often as black students with very similar academic qualifications who went to law schools where the other students had similar academic qualifications. The end result can be fewer black lawyers than if there were no affirmative action. The negative effects of affirmative action on the non-preferred groups, such as whites and Asian Americans, have been obvious. But when there are also negative effects on groups preferentially admitted, it is by no means clear who is gained, other than the race industry, which can trumpet the successful imposition of its agenda, ignoring the needless failures of minority students created by that agenda.